Hey students, well, this is the final of the 5 training method videos, and this one is all about flexibility. There's a couple of really important key sticking points with the flexibility video that I want to make sure that you understand are critical throughout this video. So I've decided to splice in each of the different styles of flexibility training examples after I explain each one. Still should be a relatively quick one. Let's get into it. Flexibility training. This is absolutely critical to improve the fitness component of flexibility. I think that should be a known for everyone already. But what it does is it reduces the likelihood of injury. It improves sporting performance. It helps with posture, releases and starts to remove the process of DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, if it's used as part of a cool down routine. And it also helps relieve stress and tension. Flexibility training can be performed by itself as a flexibility session, but most, if not all, of your training sessions, whether they be continuous, fartlek, interval, resistance, circuit, should all try and involve some form of flexibility. There are major benefits in all training and improving of all fitness components if flexibility is interspersed within those. Here are the different types of stretching. So the first one here is static stretching. Now, static stretching is when somebody takes a muscle, stretches it to a point around its range of motion, and holds that stretch for 10 seconds or more. I'm going to show you an example of this now. The next type of stretch is dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching involves taking a joint, whether it be the hip or the knee, and moving the joint through its range of motion using controlled momentum. So we might talk about a leg swing like a footballer might do here, but they're not trying to kick that leg all the way towards their head. It's just a controlled motion of a forward and back swing. This type of stretching is really good as part of a warm up because it also stimulates blood flow, and it is shown that during that session to follow, there are minimal risks of injury if dynamic stretching has been incorporated as part of it. Now, it's important to note before I show you dynamic stretching that athletes should not go and complete static stretching at the start of a training session, because when an athlete is not warmed up, if they try static stretching, there is a high likelihood of injury occurring. So dynamic stretching is preferable at the start of a training session. Let's have a look. Okay, now we're looking at ballistic stretching. Now, ballistic stretching is probably the most uncommon type of stretching. It's only used for elite performers who have flexibility as one of their higher preferences of their fitness component needs. It's actually quite dangerous because what it is it's taking those dynamic and those static stretches that we're so used to, but applying a large amount of force to try and force that joint and the muscle to a point of discomfort so that it can stretch and become more flexible. This is only appropriate in those very limited circumstances, like a ballet dancer, where they've spent years getting their bodies ready for these type of movements. My example that I'm showing you is actually a static stretch. It's a static stretch of the hamstring stretch and the glutes, where I'm going to lean forward, and I'm doing it in a bouncing motion, which would force that muscle to actually stretch itself a little bit too far. I'm actually not putting a huge amount of force into this because I didn't want to injure myself, which is what was very clear in the notes that were just given to you there. So please, if you're going to try this, you need to be super careful to make sure you don't push it too far, or you will risk injury. Okay, the final type of flexibility training that we can do is one that actually has very effective improvements through research, but it's one that's not used all that often, and it really should be. And what it actually does is it promotes that neuromuscular function to be improved as well as the stretching of the muscle. So the way that this one works is that you take an object to help you stretch your muscle. You move your muscle to a point where it is stretched to just the first point of discomfort and hold the muscle there. Now, at this point, we haven't done anything different than a regular static stretch. However, this is where it changes. If the athlete can, they then contract the muscle that is being stretched for 6 seconds. After that 6 seconds, they relax the muscle off and try and give that muscle an extra little pull or tug to get to the next level of lengthening before they start the next isometric contraction for another 6 seconds and repeat this process. Let's have a look at it. Okay, so flexibility training, as I said, you can put it as its own training session for athletes who really want to improve flexibility, or it can be incorporated into other training sessions as part of warm up and cool down. It depends on whether you want the fitness component to be maintained or you want it to have progressive overload and improvements. But we know that there are major benefits in incorporating flexibility training into any training program for any athlete's needs. So we need to start really thinking about that when we plan moving forward for athletes who and what their needs are in the SAC.